We we are live. Hello, hello to a special edition of A Smudgeon of Curmudgeon. Myself, Bill Adams, and switched again, so I got to get it back to this side with Dewey Conway, my smudgeon in crime. We are here today with the winner of the Sphinx competition. So the Sphinx competition is the speculative fiction indie novella championship. And he is Mr. Tim Carter. Tim, welcome. Thank you. Congratulations on winning. We'll get into your book that won or your novella that won. But thank you for joining us. And please tell us all about yourself and say hello.
Well, thanks very much. And listen, guys, thanks so much for having me. It's a real thrill to be here. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm Tim Carter. I'm a indie writer out of Vancouver, Canada. And before venturing into fiction, I wrote and I still write video games as well as a number of movies. I've actually written and produced a number of feature films over the years. So I sort of got.
We'll get to those.
Yeah.
We'll get to those.
I've got a toe in a bunch of different camps, and I'm happy to talk about whatever you guys would like. The novella was Major Domo. That came out last year. And then it, right on the heels of winning the competition, my novel, Jester, came out. So I have a brand new novel that's been out, I think, a total of 7 days at this point.
Oh, congratulations on that as well.
Yeah, that's
Lamia
awesome.
says hi. For those, so before we get into our normal setup, with the Sphinx competition, it is a competition, so we do have a couple judges here. So myself, I was a judge for Team Secret Scribes, along with Alex Schurman, and then Lamia was the head judge of Team Booksworn, I think it was. Is that the one it was, Lamia? You can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but yeah, got a couple of judges here, and we're happy. So before we get into all of that, Dewey, we're going to start us off. So Tim, we have a thing. Dewey, if you would like to explain, please, with our official.
Yes. Okay. So every curmudgeon, Schmudgeon of Curmudgeon, we have to start out by rating ourselves, and we have on a curmudgeon scale. This is it here from 0 to 10, and 0 being, in my eyes, if I'm rating myself a 0, I've just had a pretty decent day. I haven't actually, thought about throwing a kid through a window or anything. And then 10 has to be like, I'm just done. I'm done with that. People, life, everything. And so we rate ourselves because our days vary from time to time. And I have 3 little pogs here, movable little pogs. I like to start with our guest first. So Tim, where would you rate yourself on the scale here? I know you've had a nice sunny day there in Vancouver. So
yeah, I'm actually going to buck the brand a little bit, I think, because my day is very low on the curmudgeon scale. It's a beautiful sunny day here, and actually this year was pretty good, but the way it usually goes in Vancouver is you have 4 or 5 months of just gloom and rain, and I have 2 dogs, so I'm out there in all the waterproof gear every day, twice a day. And so today it's 15, 16 degrees Celsius, which I guess is must be coming up, inching towards 70 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nice.
I'm steeped enough in Canada not to know, but something like that. It's t-shirt weather, and the new book is out and doing well, so I'm happy. I got no complaints whatsoever. So you put me down about a 1. I'm sure there's something I could find.
Oh wow!
My mug needs more water. I'll put that put that 1 little black mark against myself.
There you go. Okay. Yeah, that's good. You always have to think about, I love bright sunny weather. I live in Texas, and so when we say bright sunny weather, it usually translates to scorching, hellfire on earth.
Just not
comfortable. Our summer days here are 110 degrees, and so which in Celsius is about 1,000.
Yeah.
So Bill, where are you today?
I'm gonna probably about a 6 or 7. Work, again, I'm killing you these last couple of weeks, Dewey. I'm not as high as I normally am. I don't know why.
I can tell by your voice too. You sound chipper.
I slept last night, so that kind of helps.
Oh, that might get you down a little bit there. Okay, so you're a 6, so that's not too bad.
Yeah, it could go up. Dave's not here, so we'll be
Oh
good.
yeah. Well, I'll keep it up just to move it around whenever we start talking things. For me, I this morning I did start out about here. I had a couple meetings and just my general attitude was not good. But since I've gone down, I'm actually
Ooh.
about there. That's fine. Yeah, I'll be 8.5. That's fine. And when we start talking about the things that we're going to talk about, which I don't want to reveal, but Mortal Kombat, those things. When we start talking about all that stuff, I'm sure it'll go down even more because that's so awesome. I'm so excited. So anyhow, here we are. We're representing today. I'm okay with that. We're representing.
Okay, that's great. So, okay, Alex wants us to start off. So, Tim, new novel. We'll get to Major Domo in a second. Pitch the brand new novel so we can appease Mr. Schuerman here because he is driving a hard wagon. So, pitch Jester, please. Dewey, could you bring up the beautiful cover?
Yes. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I looking at that, I'm thinking like, I got to get you guys a high res one. But so Jester is my first full length novel. It as the tagline says, in a realm run by idiots, their only hope is the fool. It's the story of a goblin latrine slave in a very badly run, bigoted, racist little rundown dumpy duchy where everyone is involved. The leadership is obsessed with avoiding paying taxes and living up to their responsibilities. And that would just be fine, except that there's a massive army of undead led by a sort of evil sorceress coming over the horizon. And our hero realizes that the people running the show are simply not up to the task of defending it. And he's going to get eaten alive with everyone else. And so that compels him to begin a journey of manipulation behind the scenes, because he's literally the least powerful person in the realm. So much so that he's invisible, which is sort of one of his, he's socially invisible, one of his superpowers. But he must manipulate the realm into being the better version of itself. And along the way, must become the better version of himself. So that's Jester. It's hopefully it's set in the same world as Major Domo. It has the same kind of cozy, stabby, snarky tone to it. And it is hopefully going to sort of be the next step in almost like a Terry Pratchett-esque universe that of sort of loosely connected, but not.
Sure.
You would never call them sequels, but they all sort of live in the same both tonal and geographic space set of stories.
Oh my gosh, this sounds incredible. In a realm run by idiots, their only hope is the fool. That is like the best tagline ever.
That is a good tagline.
Thanks very much. It's I love the underdog characters. I play a ton of Dungeons and Dragons, especially over COVID. It was just ridiculous, right? The amount of D&D that I played, and I was always taken by like, I don't want to tell a story about a paladin who's got superpowers and is hyper trained. I want the kobold who can't run and the goblin who's already been bashed over the head and his job is to clean other people's toilets and bring me that, right?
A latrine slave. I mean, my gosh, that's incredible. Yeah.
And there is a certain amount of latrine. The trigger warnings are not, the violence isn't over the top. There's no sort of descriptive sex. There's none of that. But man, there is some serious potty humor. So you
kind of have to.
Yeah,
that's his job.
What's his name?
His name is Shelley, which is short for Shellyak of the Gorod. But as he points out, when you've been captured and made a latrine slave, a formal name just sounds stupid.
And this just
Pratchett. So is Pratchett like one of your major like influences growing up?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think Terry Pratchett, and then more recently, I loved Orconomics, and so J. Zachary Pike, and Nicholas Eames was actually my other huge inspiration. And I was fortunate enough to actually meet him and start up a friendship with him. So now it's that really. I read Kings of the Wild, and it was like, okay, I'm bringing my Dungeons and Dragons story to life. Like, I love that book so much, but it was like, oh, I can see how to do that. So that was the real, like, the kind of one step to the next step inspiration.
Yeah, I love Kings of the Wild. Was just one of those books that just hit right with everything in it. It was just like so funny, but also, and this is, complimented to Major Domo as well, is like it hits the funny, but it also hits the feels. And we'll get to the Major Domo part. But yeah, that is just like, I think it's important. Maybe you agree with this, but like, humor can only take a book or a show or a movie so far. If it doesn't hit the other parts of emotion, it's not going to be lasting, maybe is the word I would look for.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I don't think I have the talent set to be writing like, stand-up comedy, right? Like, I want to tell a story that has dramatic elements and like has a lot of heart, but then put the funny on top of it, because I find myself just not able to be dead serious about it, right? So it's
and I will say, and Dewey, this is why I think you would really like Major Domo, is it's situational humor. It's not like I tell a joke, like comedy. It's the situation is the funny part.
Cool.
And if you wouldn't mind bringing up Major Domo and Tim explaining to the group or to the chat and all who might be watching, what is this book? What is this novella? And then we'll go into the Sphinx part of it with it.
Sure. So Major Domo was the first of my kind of like characters out of a Dungeons and Dragons adventures. So it's the story of Jack. He's the Major Domo, which is like essentially the head butler of a dungeon that is owned by a famous and much feared necromancer. And so Jack, he's a kobold and he can't run. He's got a club foot, which, from my experience playing Dungeons and Dragons anyway, especially Baldur's Gate, like the kobolds always run away, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to make a guy that can't run away. Now, what's his world view? And we learn as the story unfolds that, his boss has retired and Jack is just sort of holding the dungeon together. And then, I'll give a little bit of a spoiler, but his boss is in ill health, and so the fearsome dungeon isn't nearly as fearsome as the outside world thinks it is. And at the beginning of the story, he realizes that the one act of mercy he's done in the last like decade or so has led to someone escaping the dungeon and now making her living by basically selling maps to it. So she's sending every hero for 100 miles to come pillage the place. And so Jack has to find a way to protect his, what is essentially his found family.
And I thought it was interesting because like you are telling the story of the quote unquote villain side. And, I don't play Dungeons and Dragons, but I understand like the terminology and like all the murder hobos coming in to try to just clear out the dungeon. You're writing on the other side that is protecting said dungeon. And I thought that was such a fantastic idea and a fun idea, because I get bored with, these heroes and like the paladins and the archers coming in and doing the hero stuff. I like the villain side of things. And then again, the situational humor that you put in was just phenomenal. Like there was times that I was just cracking up on some of the stuff that Jack discusses and says. And like your character, the undead elf, Fino, was it?
Yeah, Fino, sure.
That the mute, he was used to such perfection as a character, and he didn't say anything, and it was just really, really, really funny.
Oh, well, thanks. I really appreciate it. That's it's obviously, extremely flattering, and as Alex is saying, it's full of inside Dungeons and Dragons jokes. But my mom, who's 91, and probably thought that Dungeons and Dragons was a Satanist plot in the 1970s. She loved it, right? So you don't need any you don't need any background in D&D or role-playing games in order to understand who the characters are.
I love that. I love that it's flipping that trope of, heroes versus villains. It's villains versus heroes. Your villains are the heroes. I think that's really cool. Was that your intention from the very beginning?
Yeah, I think the very, very first thought was I was playing in a D&D campaign, and my party, it's all my friends, right? Were behaving basically like sociopaths, right? And I'm like, hey, do we really need to murder everyone? And at some point we realized that, okay, in the game, we've been scripted as the heroes. But if you were just looking at this from the outside, if you were aliens that had come down, you wouldn't think we were the good guys, right? Because everywhere we go, we kill everyone and steal all their stuff. And yeah, there's a bad guy at the very end of this very long trail. But there's a lot of collateral damage along the way. And I just thought, I want to tell a story from the other point of, like, I want to step back and ask, okay, who is the actual hero in this story? If we just remove that sort of framing where you say, okay, I'm going to tell you this is the hero, and just ask yourself, well, okay, if we just look at people's behavior, who would I be rooting for? And then I just, that was the really the beginning kernel of the story.
Wow. Very cool. Well, before we move on, do you want to do?
Yes, we do. Okay. Yeah. Before we get to the comp and get your opinion on that, let's go to the wheel of questions.
Hold on. Let me.
We're professionals here. He's got it queued up. Don't worry.
I have to click.
I'm gonna move. I've got sunlight coming through my my blind.
All righty. So this is how the questions work. We have 6 questions and a little spinner. Now the spinner, we have, if it lands on the question number, obviously you got to click on we're going to click on the question and ask you that question. But if it lands on in this case is grumpy old man. If it lands on the grumpy old man, that means that you get to ask us a question if you have one. Anything you want. It's, PG-ish. Yeah, I had to throw that in there. So that's how it works. I'm going to start spinning the wheel and let's see where we go.
Big money, no whammies. Stop.
No whammies. Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Number 3, the bag of gold. In your current state of life, health, which Mortal Kombat character do you have a fighting chance against? Which one would destroy you the fastest?
Oh man. Well, I'm 56. So I think, any of the younger, faster ones are gonna toast me pretty quickly. So like Lena and Katana, I'm probably dead. Now who could I take? That's a good question. I always thought Johnny Cage was the weakest.
That's the one I was thinking too.
The guy who's really a movie star that wants to be a fighter, that's my only hope, And having worked with a lot of actors over the years, I'm gonna say I have a certain amount of confidence there.
So for reference, the reason why I asked this question, and we'll get to this a little bit later, Tim has done some production work for the Mortal Kombat Legacy. It was a web series, right?
It was, yep.
So okay, so we'll get to that. Or do you want to talk about it now? Because I'm like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, sure. Like, so my first foray into entertainment was writing and producing movies, and the way things work in Hollywood. So I moved to LA from Vancouver, and I was working out of there, and I sold a bunch of things, and nothing got made, which is an extremely common experience. And somewhere along the way, my producing partner and I just said, we got to make something, or what are we doing? Right? We're just driving around Los Angeles, burning our savings and accomplishing nothing. So we made a tiny little, super romantic, absolutely no violence in it movie on a shoestring for like a tiny amount of money. But in its world, for what it was, and this is before there was an avalanche of Hallmark movies, it was quite a decent sized success. And at the same time, I was paying my rent by writing video games. And so I was in and out of a lot of video game studios, and I knew the language and the shorthand. And I went to a conference, and there was someone there from Warner Brothers. And I just thought, well, I can go take a cold call meeting with Warner Brothers. I'm not saying no to that. And so I sat down with them, and knowing nothing about them, knowing nothing about anything, not aspiring to Mortal Kombat or anything. And she just said, well, tell me what you do. And I said, well, I made this super low budget movie and I work in, sort of very large scale video games. And she said, I have a job for you. And so that led to making, they had greenlit the Mortal Kombat digital series, but had no idea how to make it on the budget that they had. And they needed someone who understood gaming, and they couldn't get along with the gaming. Warner Interactive and Warner Pictures hated each other. And so they couldn't sit in the same room together, and they almost needed a diplomat. And so that led to me producing, being the sole producer of that digital series, which I think came out in 2010 and was made on a real shoestring, like duct tape and, and bubblegum kind of thing. But at the time, I think the Guild had come out, Felicia Day's D&D web series. We were sort of like the second web series of any size to come out, and it exploded. It was an enormous.
I remember when that came out, and I liked it just because Michael Jai White is in it.
Yep.
And I was a huge Black Dynamite fan. Like, his work on Black Dynamite is one of my favorite things in the past 20 years. And I remember when that came out, and I was like, this is what we've missed, with Mortal Kombat. Like, I love the first movie. The pulp, the fun is great. Annihilation, cringe.
No.
But like, they just never did it right. Like, the first movie is fantastic for the 90s, but it wasn't done, with the Mortal Kombat oomph, So when Legacy came out, I was like, this is phenomenal. And when I found out you wrote or worked on that, I was just like, what? Like, what?
It's been a weird career, and I keep coming back to martial arts, even though that's not, I don't set out to do that, but somehow that just happens to be the thing I fluke into. But it was a lovely experience, and Michael was amazing. And we had the benefit on that show of not having to string together a coherent narrative that has a beginning, a middle, and end, and somehow makes sense in the Mortal Kombat canon, because I think that's where the canon doesn't make a hell of a lot of sense. And so it works a lot better if you can just slice it up into the individual characters and feed in some awesome martial arts. And we had I don't know why that's on. We had an awesome team of martial artists to work on that, stunt performers.
Wow.
There's a quick follow-up that Alex has. So what's the hardest thing about writing for a game that authors might not think about?
Well, the craziest one is that you frequently write the entire game in Excel. So because all dialogue in a game is going into a database somewhere, whether it's been usually for audio recording and then from audio recording into the game engine. These days, sometimes bigger studios will have their own like writing tools, but it's fundamentally writing in Excel. So it can be difficult to keep it all straight in your head because it's not flowing like it would on a page or on Final Draft if you were writing film scripts. So you have the idea, but then when you're looking at it on the page, it doesn't look like a coherent story. It looks like a whole bunch of cells, and you have to sort of follow what goes to what. So that's the other thing is you're working, if it's a bigger game, the teams can be upwards of 1,000 people, often not all in the same geographic locations, working on things simultaneously, usually under, a big rush, right? And so trying to keep everything going and to keep not only keep the train on the tracks, but keep the sort of coherence of the story is a real adventure, because there might be a bunch of guys in Korea with a different idea of what this character is going to do. And if they animate him that way, then, that's what he's going to do. And unless you have a budget to do it. So
how interesting. Wow. It's wow. You use Excel? I'm still stuck on that.
Dewey is like so perplexed if you see his face.
I wrote and the other thing is, you like to say you wrote something, like the game had probably had 8 or 10 writers before I came on board, but I was the last writer on, and I did the entire final version of the game Sleeping Dogs, which is poster behind me there. That was also maybe 2011, 2012. And so that game has, I think, 50,000 words of spoken dialogue in it. If you include both the story and all the side things, and you can walk through Hong Kong and people yell at you and stuff like that. So you put all that together, it's about 50,000 lines, and it was all done in Excel.
Wow.
Every single piece of it. And I touched pretty much every single line by the time we were done.
That's incredible.
So, and it's
Yeah.
multiple pages of it, and then there's all sorts of codes, and it can also be very easy to lose track of things. Because another thing that can happen is it's quite easy to hide cells in Excel. But it means if somebody else is working on it and decides, okay, we've finished that, and so we're just going to put those away so that the thing is manageable.
Oh, man.
And then you're suddenly like, where is this mission? I don't understand. It's not there anymore. I know it was there yesterday, right?
Wow.
I've had a couple of meltdowns like that before too.
Oh my gosh. All right, I'm going to ask you one more question. Let's see.
That's crazy. Very interesting though, because I've always wondered how that worked.
Ooh, 5. Okay, I have no idea what 5 is. It's an axe, but okay. What is your weapon of choice for the zombie apocalypse? The
Well,
more obscure, the better.
okay, I can answer the first half physically, but it's not going to satisfy your obscurity. Because I keep on my wall. This is from the movie Dead Rising. The advantage of being a producer as well as a writer is you get to steal the props. So this is an authentic zombie fighting, bat. I got the nails jammed through it, and I got the spike on the end. I just keep it up there. You can see it from the road if you're walking past my house, which every once in a while gets like a really weird look from someone going by.
Oh my
So
gosh.
again, for reference, that question is because you wrote for the movies, Dead Rising, a couple of them, right?
Yep.
The latest two, right?
That's right. I think it's the only two that are out, if I'm not mistaken. But yes,
And Dead Rising is a popular game that's been around for like what 20 years almost at this point.
Yep.
There's a number of different games in the series. So, did you ever write for the game series or just the movie?
I never wrote for the game series, although a number of those games were actually made in Vancouver, and I would go out to the studio and chat with the people. And in fact, most of the development team on Dead Rising 3 and 4 are in the movies as zombies in the background.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
Just because we thought that was going to be cool, right? So I never wrote on them, in part because I was so busy making the movies while they were making the games. But I did, as a kind of as a favor to them, come in and help them run their motion capture and all of the stunts and things for it. So I worked on the games, but I didn't actually write any of the story.
That's so cool.
I wrote both of those movies, and then I was also the kind of lead producer. So I was on set and oversaw the entire thing from soup to nuts, which is how I could steal props. Somewhere in the storage, I actually have the real weapon versions of those, but people get a little bit squirrely if you're walking around with real weapons. So
that's true. They're not rubberized or whatever.
That weapon reminds me of
the. Go ahead, Dewey. I'm sorry.
He cuts me off. I'm just the background producer. I don't do anything except click buttons. I was just going to say that the bat reminds me of Lucille a little bit from Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
When I first saw it, I thought, "Oh, that's Lucille." Oh wait, no, that's even better because it has a blade at the end. Wow, very cool. That's all I was going to say.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dewey.
It's okay.
Move me up to a 7, please. No, I mean, so what made you decide to jump into fiction then? You know, if you've been working on games and you've been working on movies, what made you decide to go into the written word of fiction?
Well, it's a sort of a combination of things. I mean, one part of it is I've been attempting to write books for ages, right? And so the very first chapters of Jester are, I don't know, like maybe 10 years old. I had the idea of this goblin who cleaned people's toilets and was going to get involved in politics, but I didn't know where it was going. But then, like work and life and whatever would come along. And so for a month or two, I'd be really eager and work in the evenings, and then it would just sort of fade away. And so one part of it was just, well, look, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it now. Right? Like I'm 56. That's, it's now or never. Along with that, both the video game industry and the film and TV industry are pretty slow right now. So I did just finish work on a game, and I'm expecting to go on to another one in about a month. But
Okay.
there were where it's always a bit of, both of those industries are kind of roller coaster industries. So you will come on to a project. Typically, I don't come on as a full-time employee. I'll come on as as the writer to come in and solve problems. I'll be there 6 months, maybe a year, and then I'm out, right? And you get very well paid during that year, but you need to, because you might not work again for 9 months, right? So you've got to sort of balance it. So it lends itself to fitting fiction into the gaps, and that was always my idea was, okay, I'll make a movie, that's exhausting. And then when you come out of it, even, like Dead Rising, we made it was quite successful. So they called us right away, like a week after the movie release, and said, okay, we're greenlighting a sequel, like start thinking. But it was still a year and a half before the sequel, and maybe even 2 years before the sequel went into production. And I only get paid when it goes into production, right? So I was sitting around for a fair bit, and I just thought, well, the right thing to do is blend fiction into that and sort of have your cake and eat it too. And then, as things slowed down, that my ability to finish fiction kind of picked up. And so now I'm right on the verge of, I don't, like, the indie fiction is definitely not paying my rent, but I'm dreaming of the day where I have enough of a back catalog that I can sort of transition, out of chasing video games and movies. Although I haven't been on set on a movie since just right before COVID, and then I was supposed to go to Taiwan during COVID, but they didn't want to pay me nearly enough to go leave my whole family behind for 9 months and live in Taiwan under quarantine. But although it would have been pretty fun. But.
Well, you started with this. You didn't start though with Jester. You started with the novella.
Yeah.
So what made you decide to go the novella route first, or was that the plan? Did you?
Well, in hindsight, I'm going to attribute some strategy to it, but honest to God, it really was just kind of like there's a thing in Canada, I think it's worldwide, but I know it's popular up here if you're a writer, and especially if you're a writer who wants to kind of get started, called the 72-hour novel contest. And the idea is that over the Labor Day weekend, you write a 100-page book, and it's on the honor system, so nobody's looking over your shoulder, but you commit to start midnight on the Friday and finish at midnight on the Monday. Wow. And I had said, well, I'm going to do this thing just because I'll have 100 pages, right? Yeah. Like I kept getting stuck. And so I had a short story version of Major Domo. So I had a character, and I knew how he talked, and I kind of knew who he was. So it was cheating a little bit. And certainly I rewrote it extensively after the fact. But over that weekend, I got a beginning, a middle, and an end that I really liked. And I just thought, okay, you know what? I've got this thing. I'm going to put it out there. And then afterwards, I think my brain went, well, okay, so if you're going to do this other novel later, then the novella will be a good way to start building an audience and get us, like, I didn't know anything about indie publishing. So, like, how do you even get it out there? How do you market it? How do you, like, I still don't know.
Nobody knows.
Mostly clueless about that, right?
We click a button and hope for the best.
Yeah. I mean, our novel, me and Dewey wrote a middle grade book, came out a year ago, and we're still learning how things work.
Yeah,
that's why you make shows like this, where you start talking to other people, and hopefully people buy books.
And I got to say, the indie community has been amazing. Like video games, you're in with the team, you have a sense you're competing with other people, but they're like, it's the corporations compete, the people don't compete at all. And then in the movie industry, it is a little more cutthroat in the sense that people sort of feel like if you got a screenwriting job, that's a job they could have got, so there is a sense of tension there. But indie fiction is amazing. Everyone I have met has just been super supportive, super helpful. Like I said, I usually start things by saying, I have no idea what I'm doing. And I got tons and tons of advice from people that's been really good. So yeah, it's a really nice community to be inside of. Quite aside from the joy of writing, like it's just an awesome community to be part of. So,
well, I love this cover, by the way. I mean, it's just I don't know. It just really it's really intricate and awesome, but it also has a whimsy to it because it just looks like I'm about to go into somewhere where I don't need to go. Can you tell me about the cover? Like who did this for you?
So this was a company called, I think you pronounce it Miblart, but it might be pronounced slightly differently. But they do indie book covers, and I swear it was because I looked at their samples, they seemed good and they were very reasonably priced. And I was just like, okay, I spent a ton of money on editing. My cover budget is really low, but my graphic skills are zilch, right? So I needed someone who knew what they were doing. And I think their designers are all in Ukraine, but they're
in that area, yeah.
The Ukrainians, in my very limited experience, are RPG lunatics. Like they are fanatical fans. So my designer knew what he was doing, and I was like, "Look, I kind of like some of the old like 1980s, early 1990s RPGs. They have a lot of yellows and reds in the covers, and they've got a certain vibe that appeals to my sense of nostalgia." And this is what he came back with. I think I asked him to put the keep out sign and a few other things, but really he just took the notes and was clearly a gamer himself. And so the first draft of it was like almost finished perfection.
You can totally tell when you said that. I was like, that's it. It's just got that 80s 90s vibe,
video game cover.
Totally like Ultima 2 or something like that, like
here's
for sure,
Alex.
So Bill, do you want to ask a question about the contest, or do you want to go into
okay, so again, for reference, the Sphinx contest, it's pronounced Sphinx, Speculative Fiction Indie Novella Championship. You won it. So one, one, how did you find it? What brought you to it and think, okay, I'm going to enter this? And then just tell us how you feel about the competition as a whole and how it went for you, and obviously what it feels like to win such a competition.
Well, I'm still giddy, and that was 2 weeks ago. So yeah, that'll answer that one way. Like it feels amazing. How did I find it? I am sure, without being able to say who, that somebody in the indie community, like on Discord, or that I was chatting with on Twitter or Blue Sky, like said, hey, you should put your book in this. Like I know that somebody's told me to go do it. And that was like, when I talk to indie authors, I'm just constantly like, hey, what do you think I should do? What do you do? How do you like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Right. So, so I'm sure that someone sent me to that. I think along the logic of, look, that SPFBO, if I'm getting those initials right, can be really huge for novelists. And so this 100%. This is the novella version of it. But for the life of me, I can't remember who that very kind person was. And the experience of it was amazing. I mean, first of all, the community of writers that was on Discord was just fantastic. I mean, I feel like I made a bunch of friends there, which was just great. Some of whom are like Lamia. I've never met Lamia, but we talk on various social media platforms. She's awesome. I don't know how she has time to do anything. Honestly, she's an inspiration to me, given all the balls she's got in the air in her life. But and then as the judging went through and people started to say really nice things about it, that just, I mean, what can you say, right? Like, it's just incredibly flattering. And I would say when people posted good reviews, I'm like, okay, this made my day, because it really did. I would get up having to, I'm doing whatever work I'm doing that day, whatever my curmudgeon meter might be, wherever it is. But there's someone that's put together 3 or 4 paragraphs saying they really loved it, or it touched them emotionally. And it's like, oh, wow. I'm sure Jester got finished in the speed it did because I kept getting positive reviews that then just, sort of kicked me in the butt, or like pumped up my spirits. So then I could just keep charging ahead, that kind of moral encouragement, I think, is amazing. And is, the thing you struggle against, right? So especially up here when it's dark and gloomy and pouring rain and 2 degrees and, so, and then just winning is like icing on the cake. That was just an amazing feeling. So,
Well, Tim, though you're in a creative industry, like professionally, and going into this particular contest, and then being able to get the accolades that you have, how it's amazing to hear you say that was inspirational when your industry is that, you also get accolades over in what you do with Mortal Kombat and with your producer role and writing roles over there. So that's really cool to hear you say that as an indie, this was also just something that really inspired me. I don't know.
yeah,
I just think it's cool.
I think it's a lot more personal, right? Like,
Okay.
I'm really proud of Sleeping Dogs. Like, of all the games I worked on, I'm really proud of that game and my contribution to it. And there's like all sorts of personal touches of mine in there. The one thing about working on a really huge game that's under enormous duress as the writer is you can put a whole bunch of stuff in and people have no time to double check what you're doing. So like all of my in-laws are in that game. My wife's in that game. Like at some point there's so many characters, you just got to grab what you got. And she's like her family goes back to Hong Kong, and that's where the game is set. So all of my in-laws on that side are all Hong Kong Chinese people by way of India. There's a bunch of inside jokes about Chinese people that moved to India that you really have to be a member of my family to even have a shot at getting. But that's a huge team effort. It's like 400 people, so it's great, but it's a monster collaboration. Whereas when you do a book, it's just you.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great things about indie fiction is, there are people making lots of money, but if you're going into it to make lots of money, I think you're kind of crazy, right? That's not really the reason to do it. But you get to put your stuff out there and have people read it. Whereas in film and TV and video games, which have supported me for 30 years. So I got, on one level, it's been an amazing ride, and I'm grateful for everything that people have allowed me to do over the years. But the amount of rejection you face is, unbelievable. And to the number, I've written maybe 4 or 5 really big video games that never came out. Like that stuff is never going anywhere. And I've probably been paid to write 20 movies or TV pilots that have never seen the light of day. And so, which doesn't count the ones that I wrote on spec, right? Just because I liked them or because there was a gap. And so like that's somewhere I got a huge pile of paper that nobody is ever going to see. And so it's fantastic to write something and it goes out in the world and people like it, even if it's a few hundred people, right? Like that's an enormously good feeling.
That's incredible.
Do you can't take any of those like scripts you've written and like repurpose them into
some? Yeah. So there's some work are adaptations or they're commissioned by people and you just can't, right? Like
Gotcha.
You wouldn't be able to, but I've got a few that I'm actively sort of engaged in adapting. The problem is they don't, and this is, I'd be curious what you think, Bill and Dewey, but they're not fantasy. So they do kind of have the funny tone or ridiculous tone, but like one is a zombie movie. One is the story of a guy who his little town is dying. I come from a little rural town that in the 70s, like the logging, the fishing, and the mining industries all went away. And he fakes a UFO landing to try to make his town Roswell, so that he can get tourism. But so they're all that sort of tone, but they're completely not, they're not goblins and kobolds in a fantasy world. And so I wonder sometimes, like, okay, does that, like, will the readers cross over, or the people that love fantasy be like, what the hell are we doing in a quarantine zombie?
Well, if you do it, I think you can get a lot of crossover if you build up the goodwill, the trust. People trust. I mean, I hate to use like the big names, but like Brandon Sanderson writes so many different things.
True.
And people trust it because they know what they're getting out of a Sanderson type of story. So I think if you are going for a little bit of that humor Pratchett style route, it doesn't matter what genre you're writing in, as long as you're writing a similar thing, and people are going to eat that up. And then I think what's kind of nice about, at least with Major Domo, is I know enough about D&D to be dangerous, but I don't play it. But I still got a lot of the references just because of how the story is told, and the humor is the important part that like brings you in, and then you hit the heartstrings with the necromancer, type thing. So as long as you're like I said earlier in the show, if you're hitting those emotions and those beats, the background of the genre I don't think really matters. But
And I would also say and add to that that being an indie gives you that unique autonomy to not have an agent breathing down your neck about things, like, oh, you're known for quirky fantasy. You need to stick in that genre. Where now you can do what you want.
it's like,
And
well,
once
I'm a
you've built
fan,
that,
I'm gonna write what I want.
you build that goodwill, you've got your readers, they'll go with you. It's
Yep.
it, and because when you mentioned the Roswell one, I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. That would be an incredible story to have someone fake Roswell and in there's a little log in town to get.
Well, I
I
also think
love that idea.
a little bit of sci-fi there with the Roswell thing, a little bit of horror with the zombie. It's all spec fiction.
Sure.
There's a lot of crossover.
Yeah. So like with Jester though, you're building it within that same world as Major Domo, and so you're bringing over that Major Domo crossover fandom. But I'm just wondering, what was that your intention with Jester? Was it always going to be written in the Major Domo, or did you decide to, as Major Domo was getting the accolades as it was, like, did you shift it over, or did I already ask that question? I don't think I did.
No, you didn't ask it. Yeah, it was always the idea. Well, it was a little bit based on Terry Pratchett, right? Because the Discworld world is, and I like the way he does it, where it's, he hops over, and then now it's about creating a postal service, and but it's in the world. I think the truth is a little bit of it is I'm lazy and I don't like extended world building. So once I've built one, right, why not just go down the road a couple towns and set it there, save myself from having to flesh the whole thing out. Like, I'm a huge fan of Guy Gavriel Kay. I don't know if you guys have read his stuff, but he sort of takes a real world place in history and then just changes it a little bit so that it's kind of his. But man, he puts there's an enormous amount of work, even though it's based on real world historical events, to make those worlds come alive, and make them feel authentic to what they are. And so, having a world that I can kind of gradually flesh out and figure out what the rules of it are, but then not have to make the whole first part of the process is great for me. I can just be like, okay, well, it's here's a little teaser for the future. I'm about a quarter of the way through the next book, and that's about a familiar who's tired of being sent on suicide missions, which is a big inside D&D joke. So in D&D, you always get a wizard's familiar, and they always send them down to trigger the traps and stuff. And I'm like, man, this poor guy is going to be traumatized, right? So.
And love that. Wow.
It's a she, but she's sort of living with her God, right? Because this person creates her and has the power of life and death over her. So how do you negotiate the rules of your world when you're having an active dialogue with your creator? Is a good silly place to start. But it opens up again big issues, right? Like really important, interesting issues that everyone, at some point will think about. So
that sounds fun.
We're going to bring up the questions again. Let's see what we got. We only have 12 minutes left, so I don't want to. Oh, no. Okay. All right. We got the candelabra. All right. If Mina, Gronk, Nephris, Fino, and Leek were on the Family Feud, would they win? And who would they play against, Stephen? I'm wondering.
Who they would play against is a really interesting. I'm trying to think of a good party from from other fantasy fiction that I like. Like the gang from Kings of the Wild is a good one. Although I'm catching up now on Joe Abercrombie, which for some reason I missed the first Law series when it came out. I don't know how I pulled that off, but so I'm reading before they are hanged now, and that has like at the core of that story, one of them is this very mismatched party that's off on a quest to find the magic thing at the end of the very long trail. And that's Nine Fingers. What's the name of I'm reading it at night, but Giselle Bayak.
Giselle is like the worst character in the history of characters. Yeah. That's why I don't like the First Law books, is because of Giselle specifically.
He just got his face smashed in, so I'm feeling a little better about him now.
He deserves it, and then some.
But I think they would win as long as if Nephris was in his youth, they would win for sure. But Nephris in his fighting dementia, that would be tough against the rest of them. Aren't the point of those characters is they're not overpowered, right? They're all actually underpowered in a way, and so each is aspiring to be a classic hero, but none of them have the stats for it at the moment. We think maybe I think when I write them, like, okay, they're they might get there one day, right? But I definitely steer away from fantasy stories where all of the characters are uber trained commandos.
Yep.
So except my friend Andy Peliquin, who I think writes some really fun, like just over the top.
Yeah, you're just a hop, skip, and jump away from him, huh?
Yeah, and he just moved closer to me, so I'm hopefully going to see him next weekend. Come to think of it.
Good.
Great answer. I hope when I read it, I understand. Oh no.
So I have a question. It's a two-part question, but I think they both could be done quickly. So, how did two curmudgeons write I think you said middle grade fiction, which is an interesting combination of tonal sorts of things. And then how did two curmudgeons co-author? Because that also is really interesting.
That is interesting. So, Bill, you want to start with this? First of all, the story is called "The Tenacious Tale of Tana the Tender Sword," but maybe, Bill, you can say who is the story?
Part of the question: how does one curmudgeon do it? So here's our book.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dewey does the artwork.
Oh, really? Wow, that's really awesome.
The POV character is not Tana, who is in the name of the title, but this little scribe back here, he is a curmudgeon. And he is based on Dewey. Gelderforth Quillpen is his name. So he is the POV character, and he is a very grumpy little by-the-books character. So Dewey is Gelderforth Quillpen. So that answers the curmudgeon side of things. But how we co-authored was we actually started off. So I write adult dark fantasy as well, and we started off as critique partners
awesome.
Many years ago, almost 8 years ago at this point now, which is crazy to think about. Here we go. This is exactly how we did it. Dave has it down pat. We just yelled at each other. But no, we started as critique partners, and we were both going down the trad pub path. And poor Dewey was, and I was as well. We were getting fed up with nothing happening, and I just could not let him shelve or trunk this story. So I begged and prodded and pleaded and convinced him to join forces as a team. And, we worked out to get the story to where it is today. We did some editing, we idea generated, came up with some good ideas, just bounced back and forth off each other. And when we decided to go the indie pub route, Dewey's an amazing artist. He did all the artwork that's in there. We just decided, let's do it. And then we were able to, and this was kind of like what Dewey was alluding to earlier is, we had we can do whatever we want. Basically we had carte blanche to make the story how we wanted to. So that's what we did. And
so when you ask about how do two curmudgeons work with each other, well, find, I think, balance and complement one another, but we have also trust with each other versus like if I had an agent, that wouldn't work. I would have to be in the seat driving that bus. And usually that's not how it works with agents. And so this is kind of worked out for us because we can derive our vision and how we want it to be. Exactly. So,
but I will say co-authorship in the indie game is very difficult because, as you know, navigating how Amazon and all that and just setting things up, it's not meant for two people.
Yeah.
So there's just a lot of finagling and other stuff you have to do. But yeah, this is why it's kind of funny is because the Tenacious Tale Tana, the story is there's a lot of humor in it, situational humor. There's a guidebook in there, so it's based off of a world where there's like a literal adventuring guidebook. So it's got some D&D vibes in it and stuff, and it's just there's a lot of weird creatures and fun stuff similar to you'd see in D&D. And again, I don't play D&D, but Dewey does. Dewey has a history of it, so
I do.
So yeah, he's got the original rule book. He's going to bring it out and show you.
Yeah, I've got my old. This was from when I was a kid.
Yeah,
back in the
sure.
80s.
Wow, that is back.
This was the first year that they went from D&D to advanced D&D. So yeah, and I've got some of my old things here. Bill always laughs at me, but this.
I
this
just
stuff,
like that you have it there still.
This
It's
stuff
really
is
cool.
valuable, and if you smell it, and you smell memories of when I should have been doing homework, but instead was spending the night at a friend's house, and we were having campaigns. But whatever. So, but thank you for asking that. Thank you. Do I need to? Let's spin it again.
Spin the wheel.
We got just a few more minutes here, so I want to ask a good question. I have no idea though what number 2 is. Number 2 is the crown. What is the most asinine campaign side quest of your D&D career?
Wow, that let me think. I played in a game once where it really early on. I think it was the Strahd. It might have been Strahd, which is a famous D&D campaign where the bad guy's a vampire. Anyway, if it was or not, I can't remember. But very early on, there was like basically a haunted mansion with something very evil in the bottom of it. But it was very much like the sort of stuff you do at the beginning. You go to the town, and the town mayor says, "We got 4 problems," right? And then it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and off we go, and we kill whatever's in the top, and then the thing in the bottom required a lot more finagling because it was some sort of haunted house thing that you had to fix the ghost problem to get rid of it or something like that, or it was so strong that was really the only option. So we did that, and then my group of friends, even though we were supposed to be off solving some other much bigger problem, became obsessed with refurbishing the mansion, which was like your classic haunted mansion. The roof was falling in, and it had been abandoned for like 100 years, and it still had a malevolent spirit in the basement, but they wanted to refurbish it and make it our home base. And this is during COVID, when clearly we had way too much time on our hands, but because we discovered the Roll20 and the other ways of playing online on Zoom, right? And for once, as Bill, you won't know, but I'm sure Dewey will understand, like the trick at a certain point is getting all of your friends together at the same time. Right. Yeah. And especially as you get older, everyone has kids and jobs, and someone has to travel for work and whatever. It becomes really hard to get the gang together. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, and everyone is at home twiddling their thumbs. Right. So so here we are playing. And I don't know how many nights got spent attempting to turn this stupid mansion into a home base when it was the least appropriate building in the entire campaign, in a campaign where you didn't need a home base for any reason.
That's hilarious. I could just see that happening. Wow. Well, let's see. Let me go ahead and we're running up on time, so I'm going to stop my sharing here. But I wanted to ask you, now that you've conquered Sphinx, and you have Jester and a sequel coming out. which do you have a title for that yet, or are you ready to reveal anything?
I'm not ready to reveal it because I'll probably change it. I'm
Okay.
terrible with
All right.
titles, so
Yeah.
it'll almost certainly be I'll figure out the tagline and then reverse engineer the title of it.
So with Jester though being a novel, are you thinking of entering any like Spiffbo? What is it? What would it be now? X1 or something?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think for indie authors, that's the single best strategy out there. I mean, as far as I can tell, like if you're writing romance, I think there's probably a logic to getting a bunch of Facebook ads and really trying to push that as a way to gain your audience. But for I think genre fiction, those contests where you're getting 20, 30 reviews and you get a lot of direct feedback and the readers are coming to find, like to have someone curate for them books is a great way to just get noticed. And boy, it sure worked for me but nobody had heard of me before Major Domo. It said Major Domo sold to my friends and family, and then one or two people here and there, but I'm sure they were the friend of someone.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden the reviews started coming in, and you could see, I mean, again, I'm not about to retire on it or anything, but you could actually see the sales go up every time someone would post a positive review. It was really noticeable. So I absolutely will be researching every one I can find and taking a swing at as many as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And I was going to say though, now that Sphinx is over, leading up to that big decision, how were you? Were you like just on the edge of your seat, like
totally on the edge of my seat? And my
yeah.
wife is totally engaged in it as well. And then she shared once they started to post the numbers, she shared that with my mom, who couldn't figure out how to expand the picture on her phone, right? She's looking at her on phone. But yeah, we're really, really engaged in watching it. And, and I've been reading the other novellas, right? So then, I'd read something I'd really like, and I think, oh, crap, right? Like,
it was a really strong group. I will say there was not a bad novella in the final. I mean, you would hope none of the finalists would be bad, obviously, but I mean, from the judges' side, though, it was kind of funny because we had our own little Discord channel, and we're all just like talking about like which one we're rooting for, like which one is our favorite, and all this stuff. And it's just was really fun to be on that side of it, but also we're a finalist in Spiffbo right now, and it's like we're seeing both sides. So
right.
It's kind of interesting as a dichotomy to see both sides of things, and like talking to the other judges and stuff, and they're just like, oh yeah, we love this part about it, we love that part about it, we love that part. And it was just, I think that's really cool. And we did talk a lot about, obviously Major Domo was at the top of our team list of books on the scores, and we're all, and Alex and Dave were like, oh, God, I love the D&D stuff. I love the D&D stuff. So we're always talking about that and the humor. Dave thinks he's funny and stuff like that. So, he really loved that part. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm not to take away from your final thoughts here, but I just want to congratulate you again on such a wonderful novella. Like, I had a blast with it. I really did.
Thanks so much. And I really appreciate all the effort you guys put in. I mean, I posted on the Discord as well, but I'll say it again. I mean, it's really, it made me feel so good, like inside. And then to think that all of you guys put so much effort, the amount of hours that everyone else had to put in to make me feel like that was like a really humbling and interesting experience, right? It's just like, man, it hit me when I was sending thank yous to people. It's like, all of these people put in a ton of work to give me the feeling I'm giving now. Like and they're all complete strangers, and no one's getting paid. It was a really emotional experience for me, and it's worth celebrating that, So, and I know if you guys are going through the same thing, like I'm sure you're biting your fingernails, but also thinking,
we're ready for it to be done.
We're ready for it to be done.
The Spiffbo is a longer
sure
time period of being in it.
It's super exciting that you won, and I personally am. I did. Where's my thing? My Kindle's back here somewhere. I'd already downloaded it, so I'm gonna get to it.
Awesome. Well, tell me what you think when you have it. And and I'm cheering for you guys as well. And I know it's a much longer haul, but boy, even just to make the finals of that is a remarkable accomplishment. That's a really, really big and tough field. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think, again, just real short, that you were dead on when you say like the exposure it gives you and gets the book out to people. That's the biggest, most important thing to take away. And you get to see, and like you said, seeing those numbers of the reviews just like pop up is just mind-boggling and great. And it's just like random people, not people you know.
Yeah.
Really cool to see. But we are at time. We don't want to keep you too much longer. So any final thoughts, any pitches, last say where to get your books, what books to get, anything you want to say? The floor is yours, Tim.
Oh, thanks very much. Well, yeah, the books are on Amazon, and Jester and Major Domo are both there now. And I think it's fair to say they are they're set in the same world, but they're tonally similar. The stories are 100% different, and the characters are all different. But if you like one, you'll like the other. And so I guess that's my pitch is if you want to pick up Major Domo, it's on sale now because Jester just launched. The one piece of promotion I'm doing was to put the other one at 99 cents in the hopes that, if people read it, they'll be like, I'd like more of this. And then here's more sitting right there. So it's free on Kindle Unlimited, and it's 99 cents if you want to get the ebook. So it's meant to be a really low barrier to entry. And then just let me say thanks to you guys. I think this is awesome, and it's been a really great conversation. And you talk about exposure. I think things like this are also a really awesome way for people to learn about me and about you guys. And so I'm really flattered to be asked, and really appreciate your time and effort with it.
Well, the one thing that I strive to do 100%, and I know Dewey's with me on this one, is we want to support other indie authors. Like you said earlier, it's this community we want to support, but whatever we can do to support, that's what we want to do. And we want to talk to people like you that are new to it, have been in it forever. The experience is what we want to give. Get the books out there. That's the most important thing we can do. So for anyone who is watching live or in the chat, thank you for joining us. Whoever watches in the replay, go get Major Domo. I will 100% back this. You'll enjoy it if you like humor, if you like D&D. It also seriously hits the feels. It's not just one tone. There is a point about 50% in where it hits right into the heartstrings, and you're just like, it's that good. And Jester, I have it. You've given me the arc. I do plan on reading it. I'm sorry I couldn't get it done before release, but I will read it, and it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. So, Tim, thank you for joining us. We are a Schmudgeon of Curmudgeon. The links for the books are down below. We gotta point that out. We have it on there. Thank you to everybody who joined us. And Tim, again, thank you. This was great.
Thanks, gentlemen. It's a pleasure chatting with you.
All right.
So now we're going to awkward wave while we end the stream because there's no